Doug's going to start us off, and as you know what we're about, so just feel free to banter, and it's kind of a behind-the-scenes kind of vibe. So yeah,
Great.
Okay, Doug, you go for it.
Let's rock and roll. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Talk Story Unscripted. I am Doug, and this is
Pete.
And today we have a very, very special guest. He is a writer. He is a director. He is an actor. You've seen him in films such as Courageous and Overcomer. Please welcome Alex Kendrick. Alex, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, it's my honor to do so. I've watched a couple of your episodes. Excited to be on the show.
Oh, we love that you are here. And I got to just take a quick second to tell the people who are watching, those of you who are watching on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell and share this on your social media platforms. Now, let's get into Talk Story with Alex Kendrick.
Hey, Alex, it's so good to have you here on Talk Story Unscripted. And you know, we have friends in the film business, and we understand that all production around the world has stopped completely until October due to this COVID thing. How are you guys doing at Kendrick Brothers?
Well, we were going to shoot a movie this summer, so we were going to be in production right now, June, July, and August. And we have had to bump it to October, November now. So we are in that boat. But you know, God's in control, and you know, the Corona has been very hard on a lot of people. A byproduct of having to stay home, of course, is the additional time with family and catching up in many relationships. And so if there is a silver lining, that's one of them. So we're very grateful. So I've gotten to see all 6 of my kids. My 3 oldest are college age. So it's been great to have them at home and shooting a lot of family little mini projects. So we're always in production on something, but we're excited about this fall. Yeah, we're excited about this fall and shooting another feature.
That's great. That's great.
That's awesome. So you guys have produced 6 films. You've made Flywheel, Facing the Giants, Fireproof, Courageous, War Room, and Overcomer. It's just astounding that you've created all of this. And all of these films, for myself personally, have inspired and challenged my faith. And I know it has done the same for millions of other people around the world. And I just want to tell you, Alex, my first experience of watching one of your films, so it was before I knew the Lord. So this was probably about 13 years ago or so. And I hope I'm dating that right. My mom wanted me to sit down and watch Facing the Giants with her. And I didn't know the Lord at the time. And I was like, Mom, you know, I don't want to watch a Christian movie. Come on, this is going to be, I'm going to fall asleep. And she said, oh, come on, give it a chance. I said, oh, fine. So I'm sitting on the couch. She falls asleep because she has to work the next morning, and I'm glued to the screen. I watched every second of it. At the end of it, I was like, Mom, did you see that? And she's passed out. So I just want to tell you, ever since then, you've been an inspiration to me in your filmmaking, even before I knew the Lord. And that's been a huge deal to me.
Wow. Well, thank you. We're trying to grow as filmmakers, and so we've learned a lot along the way, and I'm very excited about the future of film, especially with those trying to honor God with their projects. I think the projects are getting better and better, so I'm very grateful.
I would agree with that 100%. And I got to ask you the question, did you ever expect to be the pioneer of a new age of Christian films? Did you ever expect that?
Well, so, you know, when I think back on it, we asked the Lord to help us do this. So the one thing we did right in the beginning as we worked on Flywheel, which was made for our community, it was just a church outreach to the community. That was the extent of the vision for that. But we begged God to help us. Now, I have to say along with that, I was so frustrated with the quality of the very few Christian projects, and none of them were theatrical at the time, but you had some independent filmmakers doing some really straight to video projects, and I thought they were all cheesy, and I kind of whined and criticized them, and I said, if I ever did one, it would be done right, you know? Yeah. And then when we made Flywheel, I realized how hard it was, and that there is cheesiness in our films, especially our early ones, and it drove me crazy. And I had to change my attitude because, you know, it's easy to armchair quarterback other people's projects until you're sitting in the director's seat and trying to put it together yourself. And I realized, wow, this is way harder than I thought. So there was some embarrassment when we were putting together Flywheel, and I realized it wasn't as cinematic or as strong as I thought it was going to be. And the Lord really humbled me. Now, he still used that movie, but the first couple of movies, the Lord really humbled me, and I needed that because it changed my attitude and my desperate need to spend time in prayer and to seek people more skilled than I to help us. And of course, that led to a little bit of improvement with each film. I hope people think they've improved over the years. But so, yeah, I appreciate you saying that. To say we were a pioneer, certainly there were projects before ours, but I am grateful that whatever influence the Lord has allowed us to have, that we hope people are inspired by it and will continue to raise the bar. It still needs to be raised.
Wow. So let's go back to that first movie, Flywheel. Can you remember a time when you were completely, as a filmmaker, completely overwhelmed? Tell us about that moment.
So, well, there's actually a moment in each of the films where I was overwhelmed. And it's interesting when we would ask God to help us with each film, there's always that moment where the project is a little bit bigger than you think you can handle. And I remember in each of the films thinking, what have I done? What have I gotten myself into? For example, there was that time in Flywheel where I'm putting together the movie and it's not coming together the way I thought. And I began to panic a little bit and get frustrated with myself and almost embarrassed. I thought this was going to look way more cinematic. And Facing the Giants, I remember shooting the state championship game, and we did that entire movie with one camera. So when you're trying to shoot a quick edited multi-angle championship game with hundreds, if not a couple thousand people in the stands, man, that is hard.
Yeah.
And Fireproof, there is a scene in Fireproof, for anybody that's seen it will remember this, where we have a literal house on fire. And the fire engines are showing up. There's a crowd of people watching. The police are there. Kirk Cameron's character is trying to get inside to find this girl. And we were really burning down a house when we were shooting that scene.
Oh, my goodness.
So
yeah.
the city had allowed us to find a house that was going to be demolished, and we really burned it down. So we had very small moments to get all the shots we needed and to burn it in sections. And I remember standing there, and there was about 300 people behind me from the community watching, and the police department was there, fire department was there, have all these extras and all the actors saying their lines, and the pyrotechnic guys were like, we're about to light this thing up. And I was overwhelmed and with, making sure everybody was safe and making sure that I was directing all the necessary points for the movie. And I began to panic. And I remember everybody peppering me with questions. When do we cue the fire department to turn their sirens on? How far away do the audio guys need to be, et cetera? And I panicked because it was just so many elements at once. And I said, God, I need your help to get through this. But the Lord used each of those things to stretch me. And as you know, a weightlifter only gets stronger when he adds weight each time he works out. And so I learned to expect God to put me in a scenario now and then that would stretch me, cause me to rely on Him and other people, and that's one way you grow with that experience. And it's never a one-man show ever. And yes. So I'm very, very grateful for the team that we've had.
So you can never say that you can never say no homes were harmed in the making of this film.
That's right. Yeah.
I hope you had more than one camera when you were shooting the burning house. Did you?
So we had one main camera and we had two small side cameras that were not quite the same quality, but they were just for really quick shots here and there. Yeah. But the first 3 movies we shot were primarily just with one camera.
Wow.
And so it wasn't until Courageous that we had 2 cameras most of the shoot, and for the big climactic shootout car chase scene, we had 4. Because they're all high definition red cameras, if you've heard of direct.
Yeah. Yes.
And so renting those with the crane and the Steadicam and everything was took a lot of the budget. And then by the time we got to Overcomer, we almost always had 3 or 4 cameras and a drone and other toys. But the budgets for each film was able to creep up a little bit. But yeah, back then the first few movies it was mainly one camera.
So I gotta ask, and this is a little bit off the cuff, but the first scene in Overcomer, when the camera's coming down from the trees and then goes into the gym, that is an awesome shot. It seems seamless didn't look like there was any kind of edits there. How did you accomplish that shot?
So that is one shot, and it took us all day to get it. And so the people in the stands, the basketball players, we trained and practiced until we ad nauseum. And then the drone guys were starting a mile away, coming over the woods, down to the community and the school, in the window, down the hall, into the gym, over the court, and right down to the players. So I don't know how many times we filmed that thing over and over and over and over till we got it right.
Yeah.
Now,
And I was thinking too, the 3-point kid, what's his name in the movie? I can't remember, but oh my gosh, if he misses that and that long shot, that would have been crazy. Yeah.
So that opening shot to the movie, we planned it out. It took so much planning to do. We wanted to open the shot in a very engaging, artistic way. Now we did go back and add cars to the parking lot digitally. We added a couple of light posts in the parking lot digitally, but the shot you're looking at is one shot.
One shot. That's great.
So
That's so awesome.
It was nice to finally pull that off.
Yeah.
That's very, very well done.
So I got to ask you, Doug and I, we always talk about making movies, right? And we even said, well, Doug doesn't remember this, but I said, hey, Doug, let's meet once a week. We'll go to Starbucks or whatever, local hang, and let's start putting some stories together. Yeah. And guess what? How many times have we met? 0.
Oh, no.
So Alex, what's the secret? How would you encourage us and other want-to-be filmmakers to, we got to get to where the rubber meets the road? What's the secret sauce there?
I don't know that I have a secret sauce, but I can tell you our methods for putting together a movie. We get scripts, books, emails, stories, treatments every day. They pour in almost like a waterfall. And so, after the first couple of movies, they started coming in regularly. And so what we learned is there's a difference between a good idea and a God idea. And so because we want God's favor and blessing on whatever we do, and I'm speaking for me. I'm not speaking for every filmmaker that's out there. I'm just saying, God, we do want to draw people to a closer walk with you. We want to encourage their faith. We want to inspire them to trust you, to seek you. So we've learned God has better ideas than we do. So we seek him for the theme and the direction. And we lay the groundwork in prayer first. And the Lord always, and that may be 3 months, it may be 6 months, but the Lord always begins shifting our focus and heart in a certain direction. And then he begins opening doors. And now what does that look like? Well, he opens doors to people that are expertise in the area, whether it's firemen or, military or police or whatever it is. He starts opening doors, and then he starts getting churches on board. For example, the last 2 movies we made, we had over 80 churches help us make those films. Wow. Which is a beautiful picture of the body of Christ. So it's not just one church, it's, dozens and dozens of churches. But he begins giving us the resources. So like Overcomer, the budget was $5 million, but we were able to film an $8 million movie with that $5 million. And so because so many people in the church, so many people are saying, I want to help you. I want to provide for things that you need. And so we see God showing up. And so we look for his leading. And then we every single day, we start off with prayer, start off with devotions for the cast and crew. We make sure we're in unity. And then we try to get skilled people in the right areas. And that has grown with every film. Initially, we didn't have hardly any skill at all. But we get skilled people in each of the areas. And then we seek to honor God, to be honest. And so every film we do, you want to make a great film. You want to make an engaging film. And here's one clue to let people know perhaps how to think about doing a movie. When you're telling a story, the ending is so crucial. Not just the premise, not just how much you like the actors. You have to have the right ending. If your ending doesn't work, you don't have a good movie. And so we often will start with the ending of our movie and then work backwards to know that we're always shooting at the right target. If you're not aiming at the right target, you're less likely to hit it. So we know how each of our movies is going to end sometimes before how they start. And so that's one of our secrets, because we think about how are they walking out of the theater? What are they feeling? What are they wanting to pray? What are they wanting to go do? And so we hopefully will minister to people in that regard.
Speaking of the ending of Overcomer, the whole movie itself was remarkable. And the ending I was sitting here watching it and fighting tears multiple times. It was so moving. And, I've often thought about how different movies have like a spirit attached to it. And whether that's a horror movie or, a sexual movie, there's like a spirit attached to it, I believe. And you can feel the spirit of God attached to your films. And I especially felt it with watching Overcomer.
Wow.
And I cherish your story writing. I love the little nidbits in there, the little one-liner hits that kind of bring life to it. So it's not just, hi Bill, hi Sue, now we're walking down the street, you know what I mean? So yeah. I love those. And I want to ask you about your story writing process. When you sit down, so it's you and your brother, as I understand it, writing these stories. What does this process look like for you? I understand that you're prayerful in it, and you're seeking to honor God in it. But what is he's taking us somewhere.
I'm going to show you.
I'm getting excited. Where are we going?
Okay. I'm walking down to our story room.
Oh my God.
Awesome.
Okay.
Wow.
So behind me is one of our storyboards. So we will draw or take a picture of every scene that we want, and we put it on our storyboard, and then we'll give it a label for what the audience should be feeling at any given time.
Wow.
How much information versus how much emotion or tension or humor do we need? And so we're able to step back and look at this is Overcomer. This is the entire movie of Overcomer. And
wow.
then when we go through, you'll see little gaps. Like right there's a gap. So the bottom row is all deleted scenes. They're all scenes that when we go through, we ask ourselves, was this already communicated or communicated well enough? Or is there enough tension or whatever? Do we need to tighten this area? So when you watch the DVD of Overcomer, you'll actually see all of these scenes on the bottom. So when you saw the theatrical version, you're seeing everything else.
That's great.
These pink ones are the end of reels. Now, at the beginning, I'm going to show you, before we shot it, this is what it looked like. Now, some of these little Post-it notes are gone, but before we shot the movie, every Post-it note is a color. Here are my colored Post-it notes, and so green represents information, then you get orange that represents tension, and blue represents emotion, pink will represent humor, and you come through. This is actually our next movie. I'm sorry about that. But so we start to put it up, and then once we shoot it, we break it down into little pictures, and we put it in reels, so we can kind of see the whole movie and assess, the strengths and weaknesses as we're putting it together. So this is our story room that I'm in, and we love telling stories.
That's great. That's so good.
I feel like a kid in a candy shop. I cannot believe we just got a behind the scenes look at that.
Yeah.
Thank you for showing us that. That is the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah,
no, I'll show you.
We're still going. We're still going.
I'm going to show you the edit room.
I was just going to ask you about that.
So our edit room. So here now, so we've just moved some of our. We got our posters up here, and then we have usually a bunch of edit bays down this wall. Right now they're on this side because we're doing a lot of Facebook lives and things like that to promote things. But so we have our edit room in here, and then let me come back in here, and I'm going to show you. I'm just giving you a tour of the whole place.
That's
I love this room. This is one of my favorite rooms because this is our wall of remembrance, and every time we do a film, any miracle or anything that the Lord does, we'll frame a picture of it and we'll put it on the wall. So we're always mindful and remembering what God did every film.
That's what we got to do here, Doug.
Dude,
we got to do that for sure.
That is
So
awesome.
See, we walk in to work every day in this house. And this house is basically, it's a small house, but basically it's only for our work. And
Wow.
And so what we do, we walk in, we pass that wall every day and are reminded God is in charge. He's the one that sustains us. He's the one that opens and shuts doors. He's the one that gives us a blessing of protection or provision or whatever. And even though we work hard and we're growing in skill, you can't do anything that's better than the favor of God on your life and your project. So you have to think that more than anything.
Yeah.
Alex, thank you so much for showing us that.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. That's great. That was fun. So look, we're going to be running out of time. So I just want to ask you, we have some important questions still.
Sure.
You know, and I just want to ask you, in making a film, you mentioned it, it is definitely a collaborative thing. You have a team. And if you were starting again from scratch with the experience that you know now, Alex, what would be your bare bones team that you would need to make a feature film?
So our first movie, Flywheel, we did not have a cinematographer. Whoever wasn't in the shot was behind the camera. And I would have gotten a better cinematographer. I would have gotten a better production designer. You know, for that movie, we wore our own clothes. You know, there was no hair and makeup department. There was no prop department. Everything was as you see in the movie. So that location for Flywheel, even today, looks the same. When people walk in that car lot, it looks exactly as it did in Flywheel because it was just a real location, but not so much cinematic. So, you know, you want a beautiful looking picture because that only aids in the message and the emotion you're trying to share. Flywheel is not a beautiful picture. I mean, the story works, but, you know, sometimes we've wondered if we should reshoot it. I would get a good cinematographer, good audio, and then you want a really good story. And the story is even more important than how well it's acted out. Now, you do want good actors, but the story is even more important. I mean, how many movies have you seen that were acted well, but by the end of the film, you're like, you know, I don't know that I would watch that again. But if it's a really good story that touches your heart, you will want to recommend it and, you know, and tell people you got to watch this. So the story's got to be right. And then you do want as much talent as you can find, but do not sacrifice the power of story or even God's blessings just for talent. You know, that's where men looks on the outside and wants to go for Saul when God says, no, I've chosen David, and that's where my blessing lies. You want God's blessing. And Stephen and I have often said we would take the favor of God over someone saying, I'll give you $100 million for your next film.
Wow.
You cannot replace the favor of God. So seek that more than anything else. And when we have sought that, the Lord has given us more fruitfulness ministerially and touching people's lives than we ever thought possible.
So I have a question along the lines of those having to make choices as far on the lines of godliness and whatnot. You have so many different people involved as far as your distributors and you know, all the different groups that, you know, can be involved with your film. Are there ever any concerns for you on creative control or on you know, integrity? If someone's asking you to do something you don't quite feel right with, do you ever have moments like that?
We do. And I'll just tell you where we are with that. You know, we're not afraid of grittiness. You know, you see some pretty harsh arguments in our films or in Courageous, you know, we deal with the death of a child or with, you know, you see people selling drugs and things like that. So, but this is where we draw the line. There are certain types of wrongdoing or sin that you can portray without actually sinning, right? So I can show people holding a prop that's supposed to be drugs or a gun or, you know, things like that with actually showing it. Now, I'm never going to have people, at least in my films, taking the Lord's name in vain for an artistic reason because he actually has to say it and do it, you know?
Amen.
So will I show sin in my movies? Yes, but will I actually have the actors do the sin to show it? No.
Right.
So there are certain things I will show in my movie. There are certain things we will not show in our film. And so at the end of the day, I know there's grittiness. I know what the world is like. You do too. But at the end of the day, we want God's blessing, want to honor the Lord. So whatever plot or direction he tells you to go in, certainly go in that direction. Ask him for wisdom and how to portray that so that you're not defiling people telling your story.
Amen.
That's great. Hey, so Alex, we're starting something here called the Calo Creative Collective. So this is an opportunity for creatives here on the islands of Hawaii and even beyond that to get together, collaborate, network, and we want to foster them, train them, and hopefully create projects out of that, and then of course, being a TV station, it's perfect. We can they have an outlet. We can put this on TV straight away. Just wanted to ask you, did you have a creative network like that you were involved with at the beginning?
So our church had a very low power, small television station. It only reached about 50,000 people. But, and so we did some small projects there, and we built from that. So I did some shorts and then some 30-minute long programs, and that led to Flywheel, which was our first feature length. So Scripture says, don't despise small beginnings.
Yes.
So one mistake a lot of young filmmakers make, they'll borrow too much money and then make a project that can't get it back. Then they're in the hole, and it causes a lot of friction and relational, tension. And you don't want to do that. So you want to say, God, would you provide what we need, and ask Him for it, and provide what we need, and then start, taking steps to, make films. So Flywheel wasn't widely released in theaters, but we learned so much from it that Facing the Giants, which was released in about 400 theaters, we were able to step up the quality. I think Fireproof was like 900 theaters. And then after that, it was well over 1,000. And so we just took stair steps. We went from $100,000 budgets to low millions to, $5-6 million. So we're growing with each project. And so there's always those moments, and making movies is very hard. A movie doesn't want to be made.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't want to be made. So it's in many regards, like running a marathon. At some point, your body's like, what are we doing? Let's please stop. And you're trying to get past the end. And then even when you finish the movie, there's the whole, will people respond to it? Will they engage with it? Will they like it? Or will they just rip it to shreds? And so, we've released 6 movies, and we have fans and followers of all 6, but we also have critics of all 6. And so, people tell us, well, you're not Lord of the Rings. And I'm thinking, well, you're right, but we never say we're Lord of the Rings,
Yeah.
So we're criticized and encouraged at the same time, which is a weird thing to hear, to hear people in one ear saying, we love this, it's really helped me, inspired me, and someone else say, it's still cheesy and you're still not that great of a filmmaker, and go away. So
thanks. Appreciate
that's
it.
great. Yeah.
but it's so going through that, to stay reliant on the Lord, to remember who you are, that my value does not come from how well a movie does.
Right.
My value comes from, am I honoring the Lord and obeying what He's called me to do? And then all I can do is leave the results up to Him.
We're out of time, sadly, but we're excited. I was going to ask you, so what's in the pipeline, but we saw it, Doug. So we know, and we're taking a snapshot of it. We're going to go ahead and make the movie for you, Alex.
Okay.
So don't worry about it. But hey, I do have a question. Now, I understand you guys love Hawaii, and let's close with this. So the big question, Alex, I know your family loves it, and they want you to come to Hawaii and make a movie here. So when are we, as in you, me, Doug, going to make a movie here in Hawaii?
I've been to Hawaii 3 times. I've spent 1 week on Kauai, 1 week on Oahu, and 1 week on Maui. And man, I love being out there. How can you not love being in Hawaii? But we love being out there. I would love to shoot a movie there. I just have to make sure when I go to the Lord with that my motive isn't just to be in Hawaii. We've learned, the best place to ever be is in the center of His will. But if He says go, man, I am there in a heartbeat. So we can all pray together. God, if it please you, would you please let us shoot a movie in Hawaii?
Oh, we'll be praying.
Amen.
You can believe that.
Yeah, definitely. And, also just, whenever you're here, we would love to connect with you and for you to be able to come and speak at this Kahlo Creative Collective and share with young filmmakers, man, that would be awesome, because the more the merrier. I mean, we're in a dark time, right? It's pretty dark out there. And the more light we can strike up, the better. And filmmaking is such an important medium in our culture today. So,
Amen.
Alex, thanks so much, man, for being part of this and taking the time out to hang out with us Hawaiians.
Yes. And I hope to meet you both in person one day. Thank you for what you do.
It's an honor to meet you, sir. God bless you and everything you're doing.
Thank you so much. Great to talk to you.